everyone, welcome back to another video. I hope you guys are all doing well. So today I'm going to be talking to you guys about something that has kind of been on my heart for the past week or so, and I just really was just reflecting, and I was kind of like, I want to kind of give it a bit of a perspective and an encouragement, in the sense that no matter what happens, no matter how many different things come our way, there's actually kind of a strength that ends up after having gone through something that is tough sometimes. And I want to kind of talk on this topic because it's been on my heart, and it's been something that I've really just been thinking about and reflecting about, and it was pretty much inspired by the song Another in the Fire by Hillsong. And I was just listening to this song because I'm always listening to my worship music and stuff, and I was listening to this song, and one of the lines in the song was that that there's a grace when the heart is under fire, and with that line, it really hit hard. It really hit my heart hard because if you guys watch my videos, you know that there's been testimonies of things that have happened to me throughout the year, and I just feel like this song really touched, really hit it on the nail, because that is always the case. Every single time we're going through some kind of fire, some kind of tribulation, some kind of hard thing, there's always a grace that helps you to overcome it, and sometimes you going through that thing is actually for your strengthening and for your growth, and I came to that realization that wow, we have to actually not be afraid of the kind of fires or the tribulations or the difficult times that we go through, because these are the kind of things that actually strengthen us. They're the kind of things that actually grow us and cause us to be more aware of our surroundings, more aware of our development, internally, with our hearts, how we're going with our hearts, and things that we need to improve on, all that kind of thing. And I realized that because of the fire that we go through, there is actually a grace. There is actually a grace, and there is actually an outpouring, a breakthrough, blessings that come after every single fire that we go through. And every single time, I know that for sure, that every single time we go through a fire, we always, of course, the first thing we're going to do is stress and get upset and get worried, and really take it out on people sometimes, or however we react whenever we go through something that is difficult, right? Instead of waiting on, okay, what is the blessing, what is the grace that I'm about to receive from this hardship that I'm going through right now, having that mentality of, what, even though I'm going through this fire right now, there is a grace that is yet to come. Even though I'm going through this hardship right now, there is a grace, and I need to wait on that grace. And I realized that, wow, my mentality has to shift. No matter how many hardships I may be going through at a specific time, or whatever situation I'm going through, I have to remember there is a grace. And it's not easy to obviously remember that. You're not obviously going to straight away be let me just wait on that grace that God is going to pour upon me when I go through this difficult time. But it's something that we have to train ourselves to do, and remember, there is a grace. Even when I'm going through this fire right now, there is a grace, and let me wait on God for that grace, and one of my favorite verses that often it's obviously important to remember when we're going through some kind of a fire or a hardship or whatever, is in Corinthians, 2 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 9. So 2 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 9, and I'll insert the verse. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. So that pretty much kind of sums up what I've been trying to say about the fact that when we are feeling the most weakest, let's say for example, maybe you're really sick right now, you're someone that's super sick, and you're just trying to get out of that sickness, and it's just taking really long, and you've been praying for your healing for the longest time, and it's not coming, there's no healing, and you're waiting on God for that healing. Or you're someone who you're waiting on God for that breakthrough to do with a job or something. You're waiting on God, you've prayed and you've asked God for employment somewhere, and it's just not happening. you've been applying, you've been praying, you've been asking around, and you're not getting it, and you're wondering, God, like, where are you? If you're supposed to be my strength, you're supposed to be my provider, where you at? Like, why are you not giving? Why am I not getting this blessing? Why am I not receiving this blessing? Or maybe you're someone who, in your family, you're going through a lot at the moment, there's just so many things happening, and you don't know who to talk to, you don't know, how to overcome it, and you prayed about it and you've given it to God, but still the family problems just seem to keep happening, like, let's say with mom or dad, or just like other issues that are going on, because I know that, in this world there are troubles, there are always going to be troubles, and that's something that I've come to really accept in my heart. Like, even though I forget about it and be like, oh yeah, like, nah, things are alright, everything's good, but next minute, like, something hits again, and then you remember that in this world there are always going to be troubles. But yeah, if you're going through any of those things, remember that, like, God says that we should boast in our weaknesses, even though it's hard. Like, who's trying to be boasting in their weaknesses? No one can be boasting in their weaknesses. Like, come on, like, I don't know who actually boasts in their weaknesses, right? But God says we have to boast more gladly in our weaknesses, because He says that my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in your weaknesses. So His grace, I have to remember, His grace is sufficient. His grace is sufficient, and His power is made perfect in our weaknesses. So basically, when everything's great, everything's awesome, technically, like, His power is not made perfect. Because if you're doing, most of the time, really think about it, right? If you're doing great, everything's awesome, everything's just going so good for you, you're in a place, you're just in such a good place, are you really thinking about God? I know you might thank God here and there, like, oh God, thank you so much for, a good life at the moment, thinking that everything's going great. That's awesome. Like, obviously we want to stay in that, but at the end of the day, we have to not forget the fact that in reality, things go south sometimes. Things don't go the right way. Things aren't always happening as we, expect them to happen. And so when they do go south, or when they're not going the way that you want them to go, are we now, running back to God and being like, God, your grace is made sufficient in my weakness. In this thing that I'm struggling with right now, in this thing that is so hard for me right now, your grace is made sufficient for me. Are we thinking like that? Are we thinking like that, or are we just worrying and stressing, and are we what's the word? Are we like, all of a sudden, that thankfulness, or that Thanksgiving, that heart of Thanksgiving, when things were great, you forget about God. You're like, God, you start blaming God. You're mad at God, because let's be honest. Like, come on, let's be honest here. We're all victims. We're all victims. We all kind of question God a bit sometimes, and be like, God, like, come on, what's going on here? What's happening, right? But yeah, guys, I just really want to encourage you guys, if any of you guys right now are going through something that is hard, because we all go through them, and I feel like I'm always just talking about these things. I don't know why, but I don't know, man. Like, I personally feel like I really just wanted to encourage about the fact that there is a grace, and we have to look for that grace, wait on that grace, expect that grace, that God, has for us. And he intentionally sometimes allows us to go through hard stuff, because he wants to show us his power. He wants to show us that he is there for us, and he loves us, and that his grace is sufficient, that he will help us to overcome that, and that sometimes something great is actually on the way for us. Something awesome is about to happen to us, because sometimes we think, oh man, like, everything's just going so bad for me, everything's just, why is it that every time something good's happening to me, something bad has to happen as well, but sometimes the reason why these things are even happening is because greater things are yet to come, and greater things are about to happen. Many other plans in a man's heart, but only God's plans prevail. Only what he desires, and what he has actually intended, like the destiny that he's planned out for us, is usually what prevails, whether we like it or not. And when we come to that understanding, it's just we have to, like, place our heart and be like, God, what's best for me, what's best for me, and I'm going to wait on what's best for you. Even if this thing right now, it's hard, I'm still going to wait on you, because I know that your grace is sufficient, and your grace, you're going to help me overcome this. You're going to help me overcome this, and you have greater for me as well, man. Like when you come to that place of understanding where you're like, God, like you always have, all you have for me is good. Even when I go through the bad, you always have good for me after that bad, you know. And when we have that understanding, we'll remember when any other bad thing ever happens, you know, that, you know what, it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. There is a grace for me there in that hardship. There is a grace for me, and I'm going to overcome it. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to do fine. My family's going to be just fine. You know, I'm going to get that job one day, and at the end of the day, I will be healed, because, you know, God doesn't lie. And the word says itself, you know, if God was like men, you know, then he would be lying, but he is not meant that he should lie. He is not meant. And so yeah guys, I hope somebody is encouraged with that word. I hope that you guys, you know, gain something. And I really just want to emphasize the fact that, guys, remember that there is a grace when your heart is under fire. There is a grace. Just look for that grace, seek out that grace, and yeah, just keep trusting God and knowing that it doesn't really matter if it's hard right now, if it's difficult, no matter what it is, if it's in your studies, but there is that grace. And when everything's going great, that's awesome, even better, man. Like, thank God and just appreciate it, because you just never know. You never know when the devil will come and hit you up next, you know. So yeah, but anyways guys, that's pretty much it. That's the end of my encouragement. I hope you guys gained something out of it. Thank you guys so much for watching, if you watched to the end. If you guys like the video, give it a like, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe as well, so that you get notifications for my videos when they do come out. So yeah guys, thank you so much, and I'll see you guys in another video. Bye.